Welcome to the Black Girl Loading Podcast. I am your host, Latoya, better known as Coach LT, and I'm super excited to have you all with us today. We've got some great guests. We've got what I think is going to be a really fun conversation today. And I just want everyone to join the conversation if you can. I want you to join the chat, join the comments. We want to talk about today. Age ain't nothing but a number. And that's a that's
Right.
a that's a phrase, that's a question, that's whatever you want it to be, depending on what happens in this conversation. I want to introduce the folks that are with me today on the podcast. I've got people from different age groups, different genres, and we're going to have a good time today just with some dialogue. So I am going to start with Jordan. Jordan, go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Jordan. I'm 22 years old and I live in Bowie, Maryland.
Excellent. Excellent. Thanks for joining us, Jordan. All right. And then we'll go to our next screen. We've got Shalane and Kayla.
I'll let Kayla introduce herself first.
I'm Kayla. I am recently in the 30 Club and I live in Tampa, Florida.
And I am Shalane, and I am the eldest of the group on the call. But I say, wine gets finer with time. I am Shalane, and I am 52 years old, and I am currently located in Bowie, Maryland.
All right. Wine gets finer with time. We like that. So I want to kick us off, and we are just open, honest, and candid here. We like to talk about all the things that are happening in our spaces, right? And at these different phases in our life, we are loading different things. I am in my 40s. I said I'm on what may be a weight loss journey. I like to call it that from time to time. And I'm loading in that space, right? Learning my body, learning different things. I've started a business. I kicked off this podcast. And so all those things are happening now in my late 40s. And it's all exciting. And I know you all have got some amazing things going on too. And so what I would like for us to do is just talk about things in different ages and different spaces, right? In our lives. And let's figure out age ain't nothing but a number. Is it? I'm not sure. So I'll open it up and let's talk about what's loading in your lives. What is going on in your lives that is loading and that you feel like you are learning to embrace at this phase? And I'll open it up to anybody that wants to jump in.
So I'll start. There's so many things that are loading in my life at 52. Well, okay, so I'll be 52 in a month. But I feel it coming on, so I just kind of claim it now. I'm opening a business. I am opening a business that has an actual physical location. That is taking more out of me than I thought I even had. Including all of the things about being 52, the change in my hormones and how I feel every morning when I wake up, my attitude towards life, what that looks like. So I will say that joining the 50 Club has been extraordinary for me. I've enjoyed my time here. This year, I am trying to travel, unload, and just really live life and not worry about what people think or say about what I'm doing, because I think I'm at an age where I've earned it.
That's right. Some of it's about age, and then some of it's just about you've just earned it as a person, as a woman, as a Black woman. It's okay. We need to be in our soft girl era. And so many times we don't get the opportunity to do that. And I say this as we talk about the different ebbs and flows of our life and with these different generations. What does that mean to be in your soft girl era? So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But talk to me. What's loading for you, Jordan? What you're in your early 20s. I would imagine that life itself is loading for you.
That's actually what I was gonna say, just life itself. Like I feel like I'm first like taking my first steps into life. I thought it happened at 18, but then when I turned 18, I realized 18 wasn't as I guess mature as I thought it was or as adultish as I thought it was. So I feel like now that I'm in my 20s, that's where life really like kicks off. But it's a good thing though. I'm like excited for it.
Yeah. What are the
Yeah.
things you're excited for? What's kicking off in the early 20s? I know it was kicking off for me in my early 20s, but thank God we didn't have social media because I would have been like, oh, that girl is a wreck. Okay. Just an absolute wreck. But I was living my best life. So what's exciting? What's kicking off for you?
I guess just figuring out like what I'm gonna do as far as like my career, where I want to live. Thinking about like sometimes I'll randomly look up apartments in like Atlanta or in LA on Zillow, and just like the thought of moving out and like getting my own life started is exciting.
Yeah. All the things. I get that. That is exciting because the world is your oyster, really. Definitely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And I say that at any age, but in your 20s, absolutely it is.
Yeah.
I
Kayla,
agree.
what's loading for you?
Ooh, um, well, let's see. My early 20s, I was getting married. So I started that journey. Well, yeah, laugh like that. But I was starting that journey in my early 20s. And I think now going into my 30s, I'm breaking down a lot of expectations I had for myself and a lot of things that I thought would play out sooner. Now looking at my 30s and saying, well, I had so much time to play with. And now I have time to play with even now because I have my beautiful sister-in-law, Shalane, who's always been like a great example for me, showing me that it doesn't stop at any point.
Right.
You keep going and you keep building. And I guess I'm really trying to find the different ways that I can explore that now in my 30s.
So let's dig into that a little bit because that's interesting for me. Okay. We've got Kayla in your 20s, you were getting married,
Yeah, I got married at
Hmm.
23.
and shout out to Jamie. And Jordan is in her 20s, and around the same age you were getting married. Jordan is looking up apartments and deciding whether she's going to LA or New York or whatever
Yeah.
what she's doing with her life. Right.
Yeah.
In my 20s, I was working. I got out of college, moved here to the DMV, working, probably partying, what, 4 nights out of 7 out of the week, and then jumping
Oh,
on
Lord.
flights and going places and and doing crazy things. And then, well, Shalane was alongside me when we were in our 20s, so I know what she
Absolutely.
was doing in her 20s. So let's talk about that. And Jordan and Kayla, I'd love for us to chat through some of that. So Kayla, you were in the married phase. Jordan is in the wild and free phase. And then Kayla, you're saying
Hmm.
now you're learning to set these different life expectations now that you've entered your 30s. But getting married in your 20s, I can't fathom that because I knew I wasn't ready for that. But talk to me a little bit about that. Tell me a little bit about now in your 30s and you're still married, but I'm sure you're not the same person from your 20s to your 30s. At least I know you aren't.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that because I'm interested
Yeah.
to hear about your journey.
I think for me growing up, it was kind of what the standard was around me. I think most of the women in my family and most of the women that I was surrounded by were getting married in their 20s. So that's kind of part of the expectations that I was talking about. Like it's those expectations we were setting for ourselves at that age. Like when I was 18, I was thinking like, okay, like now I'm moving into my adulthood and my next phase is getting married and finding that life partner. And though I was very fortunate in finding my life partner at that age and us being able to work and build together, it's not always ideal to get married that young because you don't know yourself yet. Thankfully, I married my husband who was my husband's 8 years older than me. So he was very much aware of I was not who I was going to be. But he was one of the people that constantly told me that there was a version of me that he saw that I hadn't even seen yet. And I didn't believe him for a long time, and I think recently I'm starting to feel like the woman that he always saw, and that gives me a lot of power back because 'cause I'm like, "Now I know how to work with this. Like, this is the person you saw the whole time? Okay, now I believe in her, and I built her, and now we can go take her out and go do some things."
That's that's dope. So do you feel like if you had married someone who was in the same age as you, it would be very different for you now? It sounds like that's what you're saying.
Yes, I think so for sure. I think I just wasn't there's a lot of maturing I still had to do going into my late 20s, my early 30s. There's a lot of things I had to learn and experience, and I was given the space to learn and experience those things because my husband had already been through it. So he had a lot of bandwidth to be able to work with me through things that I don't think somebody my age would have been able to do. So I'm thankful that the situation I was in was ultimately the right situation for me, and I do thank God for that.
Good, good. Do you ever feel like because you were married and your husband was older that you were forced sometimes into spaces that you weren't prepared for and you had to funnel through them? Do you ever feel like that? Or do you feel like you were given the grace to learn through them all the time?
I think for the most part, I was given the grace. I think I was from a young age, I was always kind of put in the position to be older than I was.
Mhm.
So there was a sense of I would always be in rooms that I might have been a little bit uncomfortable with. Like I thought I wasn't supposed to be there because I wasn't their age or I wasn't that person yet. But I think at the same time, I was always surrounded by people that did have that grace for me and were looking for me to learn rather than shutting me down. They always gave me the area and the space to improve.
Yeah, and that's great that you found that so early because I'll tell you when you get through life, life doesn't give you that grace,
Yeah.
especially as a black woman. You definitely don't get that grace all the time. So that's good you had that early and you could take that with you and build and grow that as you get older. Because I will say if you don't, and Shalane chime in here, but if you don't get that early, it definitely makes being in some of these rooms and some of these situations and these places and spaces more challenging. Would you agree?
Definitely agree. I know when I met Kayla and found out that she was going to be marrying my brother, one of the things that I made sure I did was to have a conversation with her before she got married to ensure her that she is her own person and to make sure she never forgets that, to make sure she never loses sight of that, and to be open to being able to grow. And I think that she's probably the only person in my life that's ever listened to me. Um,
You
um,
sometimes.
so I think that's kind of what she's talking about in regards to people allowing her the grace to be able to grow in spaces where sh- everyone needs growth. So I think that her journey, just seeing her going from her early 20s into her 30s, has been very it's made me proud. It's made me happy to see that she's matured in such a way that is so kind of outward, and I see it, and she I'm constantly asking her for her support and things,
Yeah.
and opening my business. She's kind of one of the first people that I thought about because not only is she a wife, but she's a professional.
Yeah.
So there's so many different layers to Kayla, especially going from seeing her at 22, I think it was
Yeah.
22 to now 30.
Yeah. You speak about her quite a bit and always the most beautiful way. So I love to hear that and love to see that. And I love how you two are nurturing each other in your journeys and how you all are pouring into each other. And in whatever phase you're in, you can do that. And that is I think that's a beautiful thing. And so Jordan, so listening to Kayla and listening to
Mhm.
her talk about where she was in her 20s and then where you are now in your 20s. And Jordan, everybody, she's an aspiring actress. And so check out The Conspirators on All Black if you have not. She's there. So that's right. That's right. And so Jordan, talk to us about like your journey, and where you are. Whenever we say Jordan, you got a boyfriend, Jordan's like, nope, I'm single. I'm doing my thing. I've noticed a lot of young women your age now are choosing to be single. A lot of women our ages, 40s and 50s, are choosing to be single. And let's talk about that. We segue into that as we talk about kind of your phases and where you are. So you're choosing to be single, you're choosing your career path, and you're young and you can go wherever you want to go and do whatever you want to do. Talk to me a little bit about that.
I guess choosing to be single, it kind of came from, of course, if I meet somebody and they just sweep me off my feet, like maybe I'll get into a relationship, maybe, but I just feel like where I'm at right now, and a lot of it comes from my parents. I think they've always just told me to like focus on, for lack of better words, like focus on your money. Like get your career together, love will be there. I just feel like the time will come, but as far as where I'm focused right now, I feel like I'm a lot more career focused. And I get distracted easily. I feel like a relationship would just distract me too much. Like I would be on my phone all the time trying to text my boyfriend. It's just I don't have time right now.
At
Good
least
answer.
and she knows that about herself. That's good. I love that y'all know these things about yourselves because these are a lot of times things that either we're in denial about or we just don't realize them. So you know you're easily distracted and you know you have a vision and you
Hmm.
have a career path. You have a mission that you're on and you know these things will distract you, right? And then somebody's gonna say something when I load this about whole relationships are a distraction. Oh, da 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 da. These independent women, we get this all the time. But I feel like what you know about yourself is important to how you move and to
Hmm.
how
I
you
want to jump
transition
in
through life.
really quickly,
Yeah.
Latoya, because I feel like at Jordan's age now and Kayla's age when she decided that she was going to get married, that wasn't my thought process at the age of 23 at all. There was no thought process of kind of what my future was going to be. It was more day by day. Um, it was a lot lighter. I'll say that. I feel like those are very heavy thoughts and very heavy kind of
Things you have to consider.
yeah, and I don't know how I would have been if I were thinking of if I'm going to be in a relationship, if I'm going to be married, if I'm not going to be married, if I'm going to move. I was very fluid and kind of how I was at that age and things I just kind of happened into things versus being very well thought out and very well planned.
Yeah.
So I do give kudos to both Jordan and Kayla because that was not my headspace at that age. It just was
Definitely not
do
in my
whatever
20s.
comes.
Yeah. Definitely not in my 20s. In my 20s, like I said, I was from rural Virginia coming up here to DC and it was what DC Live and Love Night
Hmm.
would dream at first or whatever. And we were what Republic Gardens, and so we were meeting husbands every weekend. So that was we met our husband
But
every weekend.
I also feel like there it was a different level of intent from men at our age versus the men at this
Yeah,
age now. So I kind of understand where Jordan's coming from in regards to her focus is different. And I'm not sure, Jordan, if that's from experience, from past experience, or if it was just you were actually listening to your parents. But I do feel like there's a difference in kind of the way men are functioning now and relationships are being looked at.
for sure.
Yeah. Because I
For
think
sure.
maybe I asked, I can't remember. I think I asked you, Jordan, this may have been a couple of months ago. I said, have you ever been formally asked out on a date? Did I ask you that? Did I
I
ask
think
you,
you did ask
or
me
or how
that.
many times have you been actually asked out on a date? And I think you told me like you had never been formally
Never,
asked out on a date.
never,
Yeah.
never like formally like, can I take you out on a date?
Right. You just wind up hanging out.
Yeah, well, they try to. I just don't go. Like, I, Because I just like a lot of times guys will like ask like, "Oh, can we link or do you want to come over?" And usually that's when I just
Yeah.
like
Oh,
go just
Netflix
stop
and chill.
talking.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna tell you something. That's a good attitude to have. If you don't feel right about the situation, right? I mean, do we want to link? What is that? I mean, I know what that is, but you know what I mean? What is that?
Yeah, like
Can you just say, "Hey, can I take you out to the movies or can I take you out to dinner?" And funny enough, it's not just your age and your generation anymore. We're seeing it also as we get older too.
Like I'm 30 now. I've been married for 7 years. Me and Jay been together for 10 years,
uh,
but I think I've been formally asked out on a date twice in my life.
I hope Jamie
So
was one of those. Did he formally ask you out? Oh, we'll have to talk to him
I
about
don't
that.
think I don't think so.
Jamie,
Yeah, I don't uh, yeah, well, there you go.
Did he ask you to link?
No.
and I do
No,
think that is a little
he didn't
different
ask
with
me to
us. Like,
link, I will say that, but I don't think it was a formal ask out. I don't remember.
but you married him, so something about him stood out
he
in that.
did
In that,
something right.
yeah,
He
right.
did something right.
Right, right.
We'll have
When
to have
you're
a
calling
conversation with
Jamie.
him.
So, Shalane, let's talk about this. So, you talked about in your 20s, you never thought about you, or you weren't thinking about your career trajectory, your path, your life mission, your love life, the things. But now you're doing big things,
Mhm.
Shalane. So, first of all, I want you to tell folks about the big things that you're doing and tell them exactly what it is and where it is and all those things because I think people need to hear about that. And let's talk about how you got to that point now. I mean, a lot of people think once you get into your 40s or whatever that you can't do the things. You can't start the business. You can't fall in love. You can't move across the country. You can't do but you absolutely can. You are loading at every phase in your life. Every phase in your life. So let's talk about you, your process, your loading process. What are you doing now, Shalane?
So, what am I doing now? So, I am in the process of opening a sugaring studio. For those of you that don't know what sugaring is a form of hair removal. My shop is called Sugar Sugar. I am part of a
Mhm.
franchise, and we are located in Melford, which is a community within Bowie, Maryland. So I hope to see everyone soon.
That's right.
We're looking at our grand opening at the beginning of June. So we'll be taking on services and schedules. But this is something that I've wanted to do for a really long time. Definitely, I would say it's been 30 years in the making. It was a situation where I knew I wanted to open something of my own. I just wasn't sure what it was. I'm not a hair person. I like nails, but I'm not a nail person. And what ended up happening was I went and got waxed for the first time. And the experience was interesting to say the least. And one of the things that I ended up doing is I didn't stop at that first service. I continued to go and I ended up meeting a young lady that owned a waxing shop of her own. And when I met her, she looked just like me. And when I started to talk to her about her story in regards to how she got to where she was or where she is, she explained it was kind of the same thing where she was in corporate America, but she wasn't satisfied. She wasn't fulfilled. And she went to esthetician school. And I was like, hey, esthetician school. Never really thought of esthetician school. So what I did was I listened to her and I kind of followed her path and went to esthetician school. Once I got there, I realized where kind of my passion lied was in the hair removal space in waxing. Facials was absolutely relaxing for me and enjoyable, but to actually see a difference right then and there when you're doing hair removal was kind of where it was at for me.
That's that's interesting. You don't typically think that like hair removal is somebody's passion. When you're saying it, you're like, wow, hair removal was her passion. But
Well, and
you're
I will
turning
say
that
this.
into a business, like a very lucrative business. So that's awesome.
Well, I'll say this. It wasn't necessarily the hair removal part of it. It was how can I make my clients most comfortable in this process?
That's right.
Because my threshold for pain is zero. So exactly zero. You know me.
It
So
really is.
Jordan braids Shalane's hair too.
right. Exactly. So it was really kind of in my mind of how can I make an experience for people more so than the money or really kind of the service involved. It for me it was all about the technique and how you get to the end result with the best results. Um once I went to school for that, it was just in my mind. And once I get something in my mind, then that's it. I'm definitely going to work for it. I'm going to work towards it, and I'm going to complete it. So here I am, 30 years later. I ran into Sugar just randomly. And I loved the brand. I immediately flew out to their corporate headquarters in Arizona and became fast friends with the owners, the corporate owners. And here I am, about a month or two out, or so from opening my doors. So I'm super excited. This is something that has been in the making for 30 years.
Um,
You know, that story itself is absolutely amazing. I've been blessed to have a front row seat to Shalane's journey. And I tell you, I want you all to listen to that. She had this dream 30 years ago and she never let go of it. And here we are, and that dream, that vision is now coming to fruition. And so I say that's the whole purpose of all of this. No matter what phase of your life you are in, you are constantly loading, you are becoming, and growth is the goal. And so don't give up on those things that you're working toward because you don't know, you might meet that person on the subway, you might walk into that store and that producer may be in there. You could be in downtown Atlanta and Tyler Perry might be run into you accidentally. Like you've got those, those moments in life that happen. And I've had some amazing moments that have happened to me. I've met some amazing people that I've stayed connected to that continue to bring me along in their journey. And that is why the power of community is so important. And so I don't know if you all heard me say this throughout the call and you heard the connections and the links between all of us who are on this call. So Shalane and Kayla are clearly, you figured it out. Shalane's brother is Kayla's husband. And I met Kayla through Shalane. I met Jamie when he was a tiny little thing, ready to rule the world. And so I know them that way. Jordan is my babysitter. And she helps me with my daughter Riley. And Jordan also braids hair. And so she braids Shalane's hair. And Jordan has me watching all her shows on the All Black Network. And so we're all connected. And this is the power of community. And I talk about building community with Black women and building community with the people who love Black women and people who want to be a part of our lives. That is community. That's what we're here for. And we are all loading in all of these different avenues of our life. I love this so much. I really do. Because there is so much to be said for a group of people who are so different and so diverse and have and be in different walks of life, but to be so connected and to be able to share life together. And that's why I love this. This is why I love what I do. So before we wrap up, I want each of you, in your own words, in your own voice, in one sentence, to tell me what Black girl loading means to you. Yeah, you can go ahead, Jordan.
I wanted to go last. I got to think for a little bit.
We'll give Jordan time to think about that. Shalane, Kayla, Black girl loading. What does that mean to you? And you can tie it into whatever you're going through in your life now, whatever you think you're going to be going through, or whatever you've been through. But what does that mean to you?
Black girl loading to me means that we are constantly and consistently moving and growing, learning, adapting, figuring out. It means all of the things that life has to bring in one buttoned up space of loading. That space grows larger. Sometimes it gets smaller and then grows out again. So it's just constantly being filled up.
Right.
That's what it means to me.
I like that. Kayla?
I think for me, it would mean personally right now, it means saying yes. Even if I'm scared to say yes, I'm saying yes. Because yes is going to give me something that I have to hold accountable to. My yes means yes. So I'm going to show up. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to believe in myself and I'm going to show myself that I'm capable. So I think that to me is kind of the definition of what Black girl loading is because I'm constantly giving myself the challenge to grow and grow beyond what I think I'm capable of because there's no threshold to where I can go with it.
That's right. Oh gosh, I love that so much. I love that, being committed. That's beautiful. I love it. Jordan, what does Black girl loading mean to you?
I guess Black girl loading to me would mean being open to the ebbs and flows of life. You know, life could take you into many different directions and kind of trying to go with the river instead of fight with the rocks, just flowing with wherever life takes you.
I like that. Go with the
I
river
like
instead of
that.
fighting with the rocks. I love that. That's wise, Jordan. That's really wise. I like that a lot. Well, I want to thank you all for joining me today for this podcast. Look, we said age ain't nothing but a number, and I think today we really have that's a statement. That wasn't a question. I said at the end we figure out whether this is a statement or a question. I don't think it's a statement. I think at all ages, all walks of life, all stations, all places, the right attitude, the right support, the right people in your circle, your community, you can definitely grow, achieve, and you continue to load, whether it's now, whether it's in the future, whether you're dialing it back a bit, we're constantly loading, Black Girl Loading. So I want to thank you all for joining me for this episode of Black Girl Loading and catch us next week for Lovers and Friends. Should be.
Okay.
Ooh.
All right.